Have you ever wondered what really happens when an older man gets involved with a much younger woman? Alberto, at 58 years old, never imagined that his life could change so radically, until Julia, 28 years old, appeared in his path. At first, it seemed like a dream. The sparkle in her eyes, her contagious energy, her easygoing way of looking at life, everything was enchanting. He felt alive again, as if he had rediscovered a youth he thought he had left behind. But there was a hidden price behind that charm. Over time, something inside him began to hurt. What seemed like love was actually eroding his self-confidence, his essence, his peace. Alberto began to put himself aside to maintain a relationship that demanded a lot and gave little in return. And he only realized this when he was already deeply involved. Now I ask you, could it be that you are also losing yourself in the name of a love that costs you more than it gives you? In this video, I'm going to tell you what Alberto learned the hard way. Revelations that few have the courage to make. And maybe you'll see yourself in every line of this story. If you can relate to this and want to avoid making the same mistakes, subscribe to the channel now. Here, we share real tips and experiences that can change the course of your life. Don't miss out on the chance to learn from those who have already experienced what you may be experiencing now. Click subscribe, and don't miss any content that can help you protect yourself from choices that could cost you dearly in the future. First, the truth about attraction. Alberto met Julia at a dinner with friends. He was 58 years old, well-adjusted, with a stable life, and liked simple things, a good wine, a good conversation. Julia, on the other hand, was pure charm. 28 years old, full of life, a smile that lit up the room, spontaneous, with that energy that seemed to move the world. From the very first conversation, she listened to him attentively, or at least it seemed that way. She laughed at his jokes, complimented his attitude, and said she loved mature men. Alberto felt alive again. It had been a while since someone had looked at him like that, as if he were interesting, desirable, unique. In the days that followed, dinners in expensive places, gifts, and passionate messages came. It was as if he had rediscovered his youth through her. He felt reborn. But as time went by, something began to bother him. Julia never asked anything about him. She didn't want to know about stories from the past, or the dreams he still had. When he tried to start a deeper conversation, she would deflect with a kiss or a joke. Everything seemed to revolve around what he could do for her, the pampering, the outings, the care. It was one afternoon in a cafe she loved that he decided to ask her, "Julia, if I didn't have any of this, if I lost everything tomorrow, would you still be here with me?" She remained silent. Not a smile, not a change of subject, just a blank stare and silence. And in that moment, he understood everything. That silence was the most sincere answer he could have had. That was when it hit him. Attraction can be overwhelming, yes. It can warm the heart, stir the ego. But the intention behind it, oh, that reveals more than any word whispered in someone's ear. Because there's no point in having someone by your side who loves what you have, if that person doesn't even care about who you are. Question for you to reflect on. Do you feel that you are being loved for who you are, or just for what you can offer? Second, life phase difference. Alberto was always a calm man. After turning 50, he learned to appreciate the small pleasures. The silence that accompanies a good wine, the pleasure of cooking on Sundays, the comfort of a sofa after an intense day. I like to walk slowly, watch life go by from the window, enjoy company without rushing, without noise. Julia, on the other hand, seemed to live on a different frequency. She was always on the go. She loved parties, last-minute trips, unexpected encounters, adrenaline. I was living in everything at once now mode. For her, stopping was wasting life. For him, stopping was savoring life. At first, Alberto tried to keep up. After all, he was in love. I wanted to show that I still had energy, that I could be present. He put on the shirt of his youth and went out to crowded bars, parties that lasted until dawn, quick trips that were more tiring than refreshing. But the body began to feel, and the soul even more so. He found himself looking at the clock at parties, waiting for it to be time to leave. He felt out of place, as if he was living a life that no longer belonged to him. Julia's vibe, which had once seemed charming, was now exhausting. The charges began to emerge. "Honey, you need to have more fun," she said excitedly as she danced in the middle of the room. And he, smiling on the outside, on the inside all he wanted was a blanket, a sofa, and an old black and white movie. One of those nights, coming back from a party he clearly didn't want to go to, inside the car, with the music loud and his head full of thoughts, he looked out the window and asked himself, Are we really living the same life, or just sharing the same space? Because affection, desire, even affinity can exist. But when the stages of life are so different, living together can become a constant effort. And when one wants to run, and the other just wants to walk, sooner or later, one of them gets left behind. Question for you to reflect on. Are you at the same stage in life? Or are you trying to live a rhythm that no longer makes sense to you? Third, conversations and connection. Alberto was a man of deep conversations. I would like to share memories, values, reflections. Julia, on the other hand, lived immersed in the present, social media, influencers, memes. He tried to bring up meaningful topics. She would yawn, change the subject, or say, "Oh love, you complicate everything." The most painful moment? That's when he shared the pain of losing his father, and she, looking at her cell phone, replied, "Wow, how sad, look at this video here, it's hilarious." There, he felt an emptiness greater than any silence. Because sex can bring you closer for a night, but conversation is what keeps two souls together for a lifetime. Question for you to reflect on. Do you feel like you can be yourself in conversations? Or are you always swallowing words so as not to seem boring or too old? Fourth, the time clock. Time takes its toll, but it also teaches. Alberto felt it in his body, in the mirror, on slower mornings. While Julia was already waking up feeling electric, he was still looking for a coffee and some silence. To please, he started to force smiles, wear clothes he didn't like, and use slang he didn't even understand. Until one day, in front of the mirror, he saw himself as a stranger. What am I doing? Who am I trying to be? And the answer hurt. He was trying to be someone else, so as not to lose someone who didn't even really know him. Question for you to reflect on. Do you still recognize yourself in the mirror, or are you molding yourself too much just to be accepted? Fifth, hidden interests. Alberto has always been generous. He cared, helped, gave gifts. At first, it seemed natural. Julia reciprocated with affection and gratitude. But over time, he began to notice a pattern. Her affection came with a request. And when he said he couldn't help that month, she simply disappeared. She came back a few days later saying, "I think we're in different moments." And they really were. She wanted someone to pay for it. He wanted someone to add to it. The lesson? True love doesn't have hidden bills. It has sincere presence, even when the account is empty. Question for you to reflect on. Do you feel valued even when you can't offer anything other than your presence? Sixth, jealousy, insecurity, and fear of losing. Alberto was sure of himself. But around Julia, he started to compare himself. He felt out of place among her friends, among the curious looks, among the younger, cooler guys. He began to be suspicious, checking messages, feeling his stomach turn over little things. It wasn't just jealousy. It was the fear of not being enough, of being replaced, of not being able to compete. Until he realized, it's not me who's small. It's this relationship that's diminishing me. Question for you to think about. Do you feel like you're always competing, trying to prove that you still deserve to be there? Seventh, the mask of happiness. On the outside, it was all praise. Smiles in photos, posted trips, hugs in public. Friends would say, "Wow, Alberto, how lucky you are." But when the door closed, it was loneliness. Shallow conversations, long silences, lost looks. He felt like he was acting out a story just to maintain an image. Until, alone on the balcony, he thought, is it really worth living a beautiful lie just to seem happy to others? The answer was in the silence of the night. A question for you to reflect on. Are you living a real story? Or are you acting it out to please others while you fade away inside? Alberto's story may even be fictional, but the feelings he experienced are more common than you might think. Maybe, at some point in your journey, you have seen yourself in this mirror, trying to keep up with someone who lives on another frequency, striving to fit into a space where you no longer recognize yourself. Maybe you have also kept quiet, hidden your own desires just to keep someone close, or accepted less than you deserve, afraid of being alone. But let me remind you of something important. You don't need youth by your side. You need truth. You need peace in your soul. Someone who walks at the same pace as you. May you see value in your scars, in the stories you carry, in the whole man that you are. Don't dim your light to fit into the world of someone who only sees the brightness on the surface. You deserve to be chosen, not for what you have, but for who you are. If this story spoke to your heart, if at some point you felt like you were listening to a piece of your own life, leave a like here, and take the opportunity to subscribe to the channel. This is a real space where we talk man to man, without masks, without judgments. See you in the next video. Stay strong. And never forget, time may pass, but your value, that only grows.